Ignace Philippe Semmelweis, sacrificed to save other lives. Doing a good deed is not easy. It requires clarity to see the right path, determination to follow it, and the support of friends. Yet even with all these, failure can result from the immense ignorance of contemporaries, the unyielding conservatism of society, the power struggles of superiors, and the petty jealousy of colleagues. Such was the bitter experience of Ignace Philippe Semmelweis. For 30 years he tirelessly advocated through speeches, books, and articles for one simple act: washing hands to save millions of lives. Yet no one listened. Instead, they obstructed and mocked him. Witnessing women and children dying in droves, he was heartbroken and eventually went mad, ultimately ending his life in an asylum far from his homeland. He was born on July 1, 1818 in Budapest, Hungary, 4 years before Pasteur, into a family of shopkeepers. His parents were Joseph and Therese. His early years were unremarkable. At the age of 19, he went to Vienna, the capital of Austria, to study law. One day, he accompanied a friend to the medical school and attended a dissection lecture. Fascinated by the professor's explanations of the mysteries of the human body, he immediately wrote a letter to his parents. "Dear Mom and Dad, I hate studying law. I can never become a lawyer as you wish. As you've seen, I've never shown any real interest in any subject until now. But today I attended a dissection lecture. At first I felt both excited and fearful, even disgusted, and treated it as a joke. But now I know that I must become a doctor. I can only become a doctor. I cannot resist the urge to pursue this path. I have finally found a meaningful life for myself, a profession into which I can pour my entire soul. Please forgive me and try to understand. I've already registered and will start my studies tomorrow." True to the words in his letter, he devoted himself entirely to his studies, often forgetting to eat and sleep. He cherished medical books like sacred scriptures, regarded the medical school as a holy temple, and spent his days engrossed in reading. Whenever he encountered something he didn't understand, he would relentlessly question his teachers and peers. Once, a professor lectured on chlorine, stating that it could rapidly eliminate all toxic gases and prevent infection. Semmelweis was the only student who raised his hand to ask, "Professor, how exactly does it eliminate toxic gases? For instance, using it during dissections prevents infection from cadavers. Do you understand?" "Yes, but how does it eliminate the toxic gases?" "When you breathe, you inhale air. Without air, you would die. Just as air sustains life, chlorine gas destroys toxic gases. Do you understand now?" "Professor, I still don't understand." "Ah, you still don't understand? But you do know that it works, right?" "Yes, I know." "All right, time's up. We'll continue next time." This exchange illustrates Semmelweis's advanced thinking compared to his contemporaries. It took several decades and the emergence of Pasteur's theories for people to answer Semmelweis's questions satisfactorily. Semmelweis made great progress in his studies. However, being Hungarian, he stood out among his Austrian peers due to his accent, mannerisms, and particularly his shabby clothing, making him the subject of mockery and ridicule. He only befriended a fellow countryman, Ludwig von Markosowski. Disliking the hostile atmosphere, he returned home at the end of the year and enrolled in the University of Pest's medical school. Unfortunately, this institution was small, lacked experimental equipment, and had mediocre professors. Determined, he finished the academic year and returned to Vienna. Thanks to his intelligence, diligence, and serious demeanor, he gained the support of two professors in Vienna, Rokitansky and Skoda. They mentored him, provided financial assistance for clothing, and invited him to live with them. Both became lifelong friends and benefactors of Semmelweis. Professor Skoda was quite an exceptional person. In 1834, he became the first physician in Austria to use latex stethoscope. However, Dr. Klein, the conservative director of the maternity ward, forbade him from using it. When Skoda didn't comply, Klein summoned him to his office. "Dr. Skoda, for the past month, I've received numerous complaints about you. Patients are uncomfortable and irritated because you're poking them with a strange tube on their chest, ribs, and abdomen. That contraption is French. I told you I don't want such practices in my hospital. Why didn't you listen?" Skoda responded, "Director, using the stethoscope allows us to hear the heart and lungs more clearly. It's not harmful. Please try it yourself." "I don't need to try it. This prestigious hospital will never use that French device. Are you defying me? From this moment on, you are no longer under my authority." "But director, please let me." "Enough. Leave now. There's nothing more to discuss." That very afternoon, Skoda moved his belongings to the insane asylum, where he had been reassigned. However, Skoda wasn't one to accept defeat. He understood that a physician needed the protection of a powerful politician to avoid such humiliations. So, he lobbied within the government and for months later, was transferred to work as a physician in the police department. 2 months after that, he returned to the Vienna General Hospital. This time, when he encountered Dr. Klein, he greeted him with a smile. Klein, aware that Skoda was not to be trifled with, responded coldly but politely. From then on, Klein turned a blind eye, allowing Skoda to use the stethoscope freely. With the support of Skoda and Rokitansky, Semmelweis excelled in his studies and became one of the top students at the school. One day, Skoda assigned him to care for an 18-month-old child. The child Liesel had fair skin, blue eyes, and reddish hair but appeared seriously ill. Her face was gaunt, she constantly groaned, her skin was hot and sticky, her gums were swollen, her tongue was dry, her eyes were dull, and she had foul-smelling diarrhea. Her limbs were thin as reeds, there were strange bruises on her body, and her abdomen was swollen but not hard. The child's mother stood nearby, looking worried, and asked Semmelweis, "Doctor, will Liesel recover?" "Don't worry, I assure you she will be fine," Semmelweis replied, though he was unsure of the diagnosis. Fever was certain, but it was a symptom of many diseases. Which one was it? He suddenly felt that, despite reading hundreds of books and being top of his class, he was still ignorant. He returned to his room to consult his medical books. Then it struck him: cholera. He recalled the child's symptoms, which matched those of cholera, except for the bruises. However, he remembered a professor saying that every disease had exceptions. Semmelweis returned to the sick room and prescribed treatment. The child's mother was still there and timidly said, "Doctor, her tongue is very black." "That's nothing to worry about. Here's a prescription and make her some chicken soup. She will get better." Despite the treatment, the child's condition worsened. She bled from her nose, complained of stomach pain, and her bruises spread. Semmelweis examined her bed and found a bedbug, which reinforced his diagnosis. However, by midnight, her condition deteriorated further. Her eyes were glazed, her breathing labored, and her pulse was faint. Panicking, Semmelweis tried everything, including mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but the child passed away. A hand on his shoulder told him, "It's no use, doctor. She's gone." Semmelweis felt a profound sense of failure, realizing his ignorance was vast and his guilt immense. That day, another child with similar symptoms also died despite his efforts. Early the next morning, he rushed to find Skoda, pleading, "Doctor, please come quickly. I've made a terrible mistake." Skoda, still in bed, got dressed and followed him to the hospital. He glanced at Liesel's bed and then at the second child's bed. Semmelweis tearfully said, "I apologize, doctor. I have disgraced myself in the hospital. I confess I couldn't treat them. Please save this child. I want to quit. I can never be a good doctor." Patients in the room began to stir, and Skoda had to pull Semmelweis outside. "That child is dying and cannot be saved. No medicine can help? It's hopeless." "Hopeless? What do you think the disease is?" "I thought it was cholera." "Not exactly. It's severe typhoid fever. The child's intestines are perforated." Just then Liesel's mother arrived, saw her dead child and began to wail, accusing Semmelweis of lying and deceiving her. The more Semmelweis tried to console her, the louder she cried. "Everyone told me you were murderers, that bringing her here was a death sentence. Oh, my child, where are you going? They've killed you." Skoda grabbed her shoulders and shook her. "If you don't stop, I'll have you thrown out. We all did our best, especially my colleague here, who stayed up all night for your child. You have no right to blame anyone. What kind of behavior is this? I'll have you removed." Semmelweis stood silent, his face downcast, tears welling in his eyes. Skoda took his hand and led him to another room, saying, "Such emotions are useless. You must overcome them. Medicine does not require feelings. Compassion and tears won't save patients. Doctor, I can't bear to see them die. They trust me, and I let them down. You didn't kill anyone. There's no cure for this disease. The best treatment for internal diseases is often to do nothing. Besides, everyone dies eventually. Even if you save them, it would only delay the inevitable. You must rid yourself of this compassion to become a doctor. Understand?" "Yes, doctor." But Skoda did not realize that compassion was an incurable ailment for Semmelweis, one that would cause him much suffering throughout his life.